Jefferson County 911.
Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun. He has shot out a window. I believe one kid has shot.
Columbine High School.
I don't know what's in my shoulder. If it was just a blast or what.
Okay, has anybody been injured, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the school is in a panic, and I'm in the library. I've got students down under the tables, kids. Heads under the table.
In 1999, there was a tragic and historic event that occurred. The infamous shooting at Columbine High School that killed one teacher, 12 students, and injured 23 others. This was one of the most noteworthy school shootings to ever be reported in history, and despite the tragic events, the Columbine shooting resulted in an increase of school safety precautions and gun control laws that still keep our modern-day education institutions safe.
On April 20th, 1999, two students, clad in all-black clothing and trench coats, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, went into school as though it were a normal day. But much to their knowledge, it would never be the same. It would later become a day forever to be remembered as the fatal shooting at Columbine High School. The young men carried homemade pipe bombs, knives, and guns. Klebold held a double-barrel shotgun and 9mm semi-automatic handgun, while Harris carried a rifle and shotgun. At 11:19 a.m., the two boys opened fire on students at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. They began by shooting students in the parking lot, then pulled the fire alarm so that they could make their way into the library to slaughter more of their classmates. After a killing spree that lasted a total of 49 minutes, both Klebold and Harris took their own lives at 12:08 p.m. Before their deaths, they were successful in killing one teacher, 12 students, and injuring 23 others. This day will forever be haunted by the enormity of its crimes, never to be forgotten by anyone who crosses its path. Evidence later discovered by investigators showed that the two boys planned the attack a year in advance. Many of their schemes were meticulously carved into journals outlining their destructive plans. In these journals, they also discussed their obsession with the philosophy of natural selection and their excitement for what was to come. In one entry, Harris writes, "I just want to burn the world. I want to kill everyone except about 5 people. If we get busted any time, we start killing then and there. I ain't going without a fight." Klebold and Harris even made home videos of themselves beforehand discussing their plans, practicing shooting skills, and apologizing to their parents for what would later ensue. The young boys obtained one of the guns, a TEC DC-9, from a man named Mark Maines, who was later sentenced to 6 years in prison for selling weapons linked to the Columbine shooting. They bought the additional weapons through Dylan's prom date, Robin Anderson, at the Tanner Gun Show in December of 1998 from unlicensed sellers.
Every student that's in high school right now was born after Columbine, so our whole educational lives have been surrounded by mass shootings. I think understanding the tragedy of it is important so that we can change.
The lethal and catastrophic shooting at Columbine High School sparked a national debate on gun control that provoked a conversation about school safety. Despite the negative implications of this event, benefactory laws were put into place to protect and educate students on gun control. A zero-tolerance policy was enacted that outlined the serious disciplinary actions that would take place if a student were suspected to be a threat to school safety. If any individual were to jeopardize the well-being of an educational institution, they would face suspension or even expulsion. This policy placed restrictions on things like certain medications on school property, the prohibition of anything that could be considered a weapon, among many more. On top of the new zero-tolerance policy, President Clinton decided to take legal action in March of 2000 in the wake of gun violence following the attacks at Columbine. He proposed solutions that would require all future guns to have child safety locks and ban the use of high-capacity ammunition clips in certain states. During his State of the Union address in 2000, he strongly campaigned for increasing the number of federal law prosecutors and providing them with the resources needed to successfully crack down on illegal gun trafficking. In total, 8 laws were passed that balanced both gun control and gun rights. These laws made it harder for individuals that were considered dangerous to obtain firearms while still giving law-abiding citizens the right to carry guns, resulting in an overall compromise that ended a controversial debate over gun laws. Among the laws passed was the Conceal and Carry Act, the most prominent piece of legislation in effect, which won a bipartisan majority of 46-16 in the House, including almost every Democrat outside Denver and Boulder, and 23-12 in the Senate, according to an article by Dave Capel at the National Review. This law allowed citizens to carry a firearm as long as they had a permit and provided proper documentation to own said firearm. Applicants of these permits may be denied if they are suspected to present a danger to themselves or others. Another law, which advocated for gun control, prohibited the transferring of a firearm to a minor without proper consent given from a legal guardian. This was enacted because the Columbine shooters obtained their weapons from a secondary source rather than buying them directly. Subsequently, another pro-gun control law was put into place by Colorado voters in 2000 that closed some loopholes in relation to gun shows. It said that anyone who sells firearms at gun shows are required to have a license in order to market them.
The fire alarm went off, and I'd gone to the bathroom, so I came back in and the kids were all gone, so we went outside, and it was a gorgeous day, and everybody was like just figuring it was a fire drill, and then kids started running by yelling, they've got guns, and I didn't believe them because that just didn't even make sense. And then administrators ran by and said, they've got guns, get them over the fence and into the park. When everybody else was watching everything unfold on television, I didn't see any of that, so I thought everything was okay. And about 4:30, the police and victims assistants took over what I was doing, and I went into the library and watched the news for the first time. It was the first time it occurred to me that anyone had been killed, and it was also the first time that occurred, obviously, that I would have to know any of them. The speech coach at the time and said, did you hear about Rachel? And I said, no. And he said, she's dead. And I said, that's not true. You're lying. Another kid who had gotten off the bus, or another bus, came in and said that Isaiah was dead. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yes, I was in the library and they shot him in the face in front of me. The FBI has told us is that Eric was a classic psychopath. But Dylan was my student, and what the FBI tells us about him is that he was severely depressed and suicidal. If he had never met Eric, he probably would have completed suicide, or at least attempted it, but he wouldn't have killed anyone. I think the most important thing is to understand that it can happen to you. Tomorrow is a probability, not a guarantee.
As the grief of this incident still lingers above our heads, and the anguish consistently seeps through the cracks of our society, we are reminded of the tragic events of that fateful day at Columbine High School. 1 day, 49 minutes, 2 gunmen, 13 lives, 8 laws, and an uncanny magnitude of adversity. Since that day, there have been 270 school shootings. Out of those school shootings, 141 people have lost their lives, and out of those convicted of school shootings, 81% told someone of their lethal plans beforehand. These statistics tell a bigger story about history, a story that has shaped our past and forged our future. It has awakened us to the realism of human nature and the true feelings associated with loss. As you flip through the pages of the past and sort through these pictures of surrender, just remember, history has its eyes. Do you?
An extremely quiet child, they call you in your school report. He's always taken